Okay, it is 7 o'clock, and I would like to call the meeting of the North Fair Oaks Community Council to order. Can we have a roll call, please?
Yes. Okay. Chair Brooks Esser,
Present.
Vice Chair Juan Carlos Prado,
Present.
Councilmember Beatriz Cerrillo,
Present.
Councilmember Joanny Gillespie, Councilmember Linda Lopez, Councilmember Everardo Rodriguez,
Present.
Councilmember Jennifer Ruiz, Councilmember Blair Whitney,
Here. Present.
Youth Councilmember Gabriela Ake,
Present.
Councilmember Citlali Curencita.
Present.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. It's time for a public comment. Anyone may speak up to 2 minutes on any topic not on the agenda. The council cannot discuss or take action on any item not on the agenda tonight. Do we have any public comment, Jennifer?
If anybody has a public comment, you would use the raise hand feature in order to organize any public comment. If you do have a public comment, now will be the time to raise your hand. So I see Roxana Enriquez has a public comment. Okay, Roxana, I will unmute you and please do not start speaking until you see the timer on your screen. So let me. Okay, Roxana, so you have 2 minutes. So you may please share your public comment.
All right. Thank you so much, Jennifer. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Roxana Enriquez. I am the new Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention Commission Commissioner. And I just came here to introduce myself. I was born and raised in Redwood City, grew up in North Fair Oaks, attended elementary schools in Redwood City and the high schools. I also come here today to kind of just share that some stuff that our commission is working on is truancy project. We're working on a diversion project. We're also working and communicating with elected officials. And also we are analyzing after school programs in North Fair Oaks area and throughout the county as well. We are also analyzing and creating a new dashboard to monitorize data. And we are also doing outreach to underserved youth in North Fair Oaks areas. And we are also working on peer court. And also we are just learning about lessons that we have learned during COVID-19. And just a little bit about myself. So I am 30 years old. I have 2 children who attend KIP Excelencia, and I've been very involved in their education. And I also sit on HIP Housing's Board of Directors and Innovate Public Schools Board of Directors, and also Connect Charter Schools Board of Directors. So I'm just here just to kind of share, just share out and just see what's going on in the North Fair Oaks community, and, see any types of updates that you guys have, and just trying to just put myself out there. I also sit on the Redwood City Police Advisory Committee that recently was created by the council, and I was voted in at large. I just want to make sure that I want to give back to where I grew up. So I'm here, and yeah, that's all I have. Back to Jennifer. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Clara, does anyone have a public comment on your end?
Not at the moment, Jennifer.
Okay, back to you, Chair.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Roxana, for joining us this evening. Report out. First one is County Manager's report. Justin?
Good evening, everyone. Good to see you. Happy summer. We've got a packed agenda, and I'll be talking to you later, so no separate County Manager report from me today.
Okay. Thanks very much, Justin. Council members reports. I'll go ahead and go first. With regard to the revised ordinance dealing with firearms dealers in North Fair Oaks, if you'll remember that the council endorsed this ordinance at our last meeting, and indeed the Board of Supervisors approved it at its January 17th meeting. As we discussed last month, the safety standards prescribed by the ordinance, such as steel bars over dealer windows, additional steps for securing firearms, and better quality surveillance cameras and alarm systems, should decrease the possibility of firearms being stolen from dealers, winding up in the hands of criminals. So a solid ordinance there that hopefully will do some good in the community. Second, I attended the community meeting that was held this morning, primarily for local businesses, with regard to the Middlefield Road Improvement Project. We're going to get into the details of that later on in the agenda. But I just wanted to offer my thanks to Emma and the OCA team for all of the outreach that they have done with the business community to keep them informed about the project, the potential impact to their businesses. In addition to the community meetings, they've created information packets, there are mailers, they've reached out in person, they've leveraged social media to every business in the construction area. I just wanted to thank them very much for that effort. Finally, a reminder to all council members, if you would, please check your county email frequently. It's important for you to stay up to date on matters that come up before the council, general information about things that are going on in the community, and also, quite honestly, confirming your attendance at meetings. We have a requirement that we confirm our attendance 48 hours in advance of all of our meetings with OCA. So if you would, please make a note to check your email more frequently, your county email, that is. Thank you. And next up is Vice Chair Juan Carlos Prado.
Yeah, the only report that I like to comment on is Emma's great work in the community. Just to piggyback what Brooks said, I've been spoken to some of the business owners that are Spanish speaking only, just to affirm with them the information that the county has provided to make sure that they're comfortable with all the changes that are going on, and that they have the adequate information, and they feel that the county has provided that information. And they told me that some of the concerns of some of the lane closures that have happened, and I'm sure will continue to happen from time to time. They just want it just from a delivery logistics point of view. If there's any way for them to know beforehand of any lane closures that might be happening, if they can get any kind of head notice on that, because some of the business owners did express to me some of the concerns of logistically, it was a bit difficult to get some of the deliveries, especially for the restaurant owners when they get some supplies. So I just wanted to share that, but most importantly, just congratulate the county on their efforts.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Councilmember Beatriz Cermillo.
What I attended was the Supervisor Slocum's Unite Zoom, Facebook Live information with the youth that was very well produced, I guess. But I enjoyed listening to the youth, listening to those that presented good information, and just the focus and information from the youth perspective. I enjoyed that very much. And it happened right before this meeting. So I was able to attend.
I believe we're missing council members Gillespie and Lopez this evening. Council member Rodriguez, do you have an update for us?
Yes, thank you. Hello, everyone. I'll try to report briefly. So I attended as a volunteer, the OIE conference, Orgullo and Education, Pride in Education, for youth members, for the youth residents of North Fair Oaks and Redwood City. This was organized by the Fair Oaks Community Center and supported by Cañada College and Redwood City Together, several other community-based organizations. It was a great event. I'm glad that they decided not to cancel it because, you know, youth really don't have a whole lot of alternatives or events that they can be part of. So this was one of the only ones, the few ones that happen happens once a year. There were freebies that were given to youth. There was a drive-through where I participated to, hand off the food and some swag, T-shirts, face masks, and other things. And then they were supposed to head back home to watch a series of speakers. There was really good poetry. I recommend you to watch that. Then the other event that I participated in, it was just yesterday, the County Office of Sustainability and Climate Ready Communities organized an event for several cities here in the peninsula, including East Palo Alto, Menlo Park, and Redwood City, North Fair Oaks. It was around emergency events and preparedness around climate change. There was very good attendance and lots of good feedback. There is a survey that that the Office of Emergency Services is circulating to renovate pretty much the multi-hazard mitigation plan. And that's pretty much it, I think.
Thank you very much, Ever. Councilmember Ruiz. Jennifer?
Hi, I don't have any reports today.
Okay, very good. Councilmember Whitney.
There
you
I
go.
turned my video on and I unmuted myself. And I did all that to tell you that I have attended no public bodies or functions. I've just continued to go to my job and I'm still employed and grateful for that. And I still am making my rent, but I'm very pleased that the state of California is going to be offering some relief for folks that are behind. I know a lot of my neighbors have been stressing about stuff like that. So it feels like we got light at the end of the tunnel, but there's a lot of people with stresses on them as far as financial obligations and what the future might hold. And I think we're all going to get through this together. So positivity. That's it. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Blair. Councilmember Aki.
Yes, I do have some regards the youth getting vaccinated. I was part of the panelists earlier today, like a couple minutes ago, with the partnership with Karen, Redwood City Together, and Kaiser and Siena Youth Center, and to discuss about like youth getting vaccinated. And there was some information that I would like to share, that 48% of the Latinx community 12 years and over have received one dose of the vaccine. And we're trying to provide more youth to be able to go out and get vaccinated. And there's also a event going on this Sunday at Red Morton, June 27th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., where anyone, including the youth and anyone 12 and over, that can go get vaccinated. It's like a health fair where there'll be games, prizes, and your family and everyone in the community should go.
Thanks so much for participating in that. Councilmember Kurincita.
Hi, everyone. I have a small report. I attended the OYE conference, I think, a week ago, 2 weeks ago, and it was amazing. There was a lot of poetry. There was a lot of community building that youth needed, especially during this time. And yeah, sending positivity from my end as well. That's all for me.
Okay, thank you all very much. Next item up on the agenda is a COVID-19 vaccine update. Justin, correct me if I'm wrong. Are you presenting that one, or is that County Council tonight?
I will be presenting that one. I did ask County Council to be here for the next one for the fireworks.
For the fireworks. Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
Floor is yours, Justin.
Thank you very much. I will just present quickly, give a quick vaccine update for you all. Jennifer, could you share the slides, please? Oh, terrific. So, we are at a bit of a pivot, or a bit of a different phase of the vaccine rollout now. As you all know, on June 15th, the state essentially reopened and did away with a lot of the restrictions, mask and distance restrictions, and industry-specific restrictions that have been in place before. And we as a county are in a slightly different place with respect to our vaccine rollout. So it's a good time to update you on where things stand. And we'll go ahead and do that. Next slide, please. So here are the stats as of today for the county as a whole. As you can see on the left side, of the 12 plus category, which is everyone who's eligible, we're 85.7%. Much better than the state average overall. But the details are to the right, and you can see the different categories in the vaccination rates. As Gabriela was referencing earlier, we have the best stats that are available here on our vaccination rates by ethnicity and race. And you can see that the Hispanic categories at 48.7, our African-American categories at 56.2, Asian at 97.3, white at 78.5. Now, these statistics aren't perfect, and the epidemiologists will tell us that our when we're talking about percentages of our racial categories, it depends entirely on how people report, both to the census and then on when they actually get a vaccination. And as you can see, we have a fair number of unknown folks and a fair number of multiracial folks. So the statistics may not be 100% accurate. However, they definitely give a sense of the trends. And we can see that vaccination rates among our Hispanic population is the lowest. And so although the county as a whole is doing pretty good on our vaccination rate, we definitely still have work to do. And there we are still working on providing vaccination opportunities for those residents who are not yet vaccinated. And by the way, all the slides and the statistics I'm sharing tonight are available on the county health website. Next slide, please. This is the slide that shows the health equity quartile. This is the state's equity metric for the vaccination rollout, which I have shared with you in the past. It ranks and compares the county's overall vaccination rate with cumulatively the vaccination rate in our low healthy places index census tracts. And this shows that the vaccination rate of the county overall is 85.7, and in our healthy places, lowest healthy places quartile, it's 75%. It's about 12 points difference. That is narrowing over time, and that's really the goal. And we would expect that top number is not going to move a ton at the 86%, right below 90%. But we really want to close the gap between the county overall and our low HPI areas. Next slide, please. So just a quick update on where we stand in the pandemic and in the state. Like I said earlier, the Blueprint for a Safer Economy, the state's framework during the pandemic has essentially been ended as of June 15th. And so now if folks are vaccinated, there's essentially no mask mandate from the state in public, except in these listed areas on public transit, school and childcare settings, correctional settings, and homeless settings. But businesses and certain entities may choose to still ask clients and customers to wear masks. So people should still be checking the signs when they go into restaurants and other places. If for those who are unvaccinated, masks are still required in any indoor public setting. And the examples of those are listed here. We no longer have any local county health orders that modify the state's guidelines in any way. And so now, and we don't expect to have any new such orders at the county level into the future. So whatever the state guidelines are going to be, that's what it's going to be in San Mateo County. Next slide, please. So where's the vaccine rollout now? As I mentioned, we're almost at 90% overall in the county. So we have pivoted away from mass vaccination events. We're no longer expecting events with 3,000 people will get vaccinated in a single day. It's really about making accessible opportunities and clinics available for those who are not yet vaccinated whenever they are ready to be vaccinated, and making sure that we have convenient and accessible locations for them. There is still opportunities with providers, with pharmacies. In fact, pharmacies are a very large segment of our residents do get vaccinated at the pharmacies. There's 60 pharmacies in our county, and from what I've heard most recently, they all have availability. They're pretty easy to get an appointment at this point. In addition, the county continues to sponsor regular clinics, which I'll talk a little bit more about in a bit. We've changed some locations. We've consolidated largely to where we have our medical centers, ambulatory clinics, but those clinics are located in low HPI areas, or they're designed to serve low HPI areas. And we have public-facing clinics available at all those sites, which I'll talk about a little bit more. We are maintaining a vaccine clinic calendar for all the county-sponsored clinics across the county, and the website is here. And I will also share these slides with you afterward, so you will have these links. In addition, something that we rolled out recently, and I believe I gave you a preview of this last month, but is this new vaccine interest form that any entity in our county can fill out. And we will offer to sponsor or provide a vaccination team to any kind of pop-up event anywhere in the community. So, a church group, some sort of soccer tournament, whatever it is, if it is in an area that is serving low HPI communities, or otherwise, an area of concern for our public health, and the sponsoring group thinks they can get 25 people there, we will send a vaccination team. The link is here. Anybody can fill it out. Employers can fill it out. We are still applying a lens of a public health lens. So if an employer, that has an employee base that doesn't really show any risk factors, we may refer them to their own, so they can connect with the vaccination vendor directly. But for example, if there's an employer, a produce terminal or something like that has a site that has a lot of unvaccinated workers, we will go and send a team there. We've already been requested to a number of church services. We're going to the Boys and Girls Club in EPA, just all sorts of settings. We really wanted to decentralize the site identification with this. So anyone in the community can request it based on what they know about the community and their neighborhoods and the people they serve. So the link is there, and we are distributing it widely, and we encourage everyone and anyone, if they know anyone who wants to have an event with a pop-up clinic, to go ahead and fill it out, and they will be contacted by public health. And then for all the county-sponsored clinics, whether the micro clinics or the regular clinics across the county, they're all available on My Turn, in addition to being listed on the vaccine calendar with the link here. Next slide, please. So in North Fair Oaks specifically, the county is operating 2 days a week at the parking lot of the Fair Oaks Health Center. Now, of course, the patients of the Fair Oaks Health Center can be served, with their appointments, and there's patient-specific clinics. But these clinics listed here are public-facing. Anyone is welcome. At all of our clinics, we have both Pfizer's and Johnson & Johnson or Janssen, so that we can vaccinate folks who are as young as 12. Or if you're over 18 but you want just to be one and done, we have a Janssen available as well. Walk-ups are welcome, or if it works better for folks, they can make an appointment for any of our sites on My Turn. And there's a number here that you can call if you prefer to do it by voice. I will share this flyer with you as well. We have it in both English and Spanish. This was the clinic that was previously operated by Dignity, but the county is taking over again and operating it going forward. We have it listed through July 31st. All of our clinics are planned through July 31st. It's not because we think that the pandemic will be over by July 31st. That's just the window of planning we're operating under, and then we'll assess again at the end of next month. And if any pivots are needed, we will do so. Next slide, please. So where are the areas we're focusing on in the vaccine rollout going forward? As I mentioned, the medical center and all its patients, the medical center will continue to serve the safety net population that they are designed to serve and that are their regular patients. We are also operating clinics at the parking lots of those clinics across the county, as well as in East Palo Alto. Well, we don't have a clinic, but we do have a regular weekly vaccine opportunity, Redwood City, North Fair Oaks, San Mateo, South San Francisco, Daly City, and Half Moon Bay. We're also doing the pop-up micro events, which I just discussed. We're also continuing to spread the word about our pharmacies and the 60 pharmacies in our county that offer vaccines. It's an excellent opportunity and very accessible for some, or for many, I should say. We are also really trying to coordinate the outreach. You know, there are a lot of entities now involved in the vaccine rollout and education outreach. Some of them are sponsored by the county, some of them doing it on their own, some of them sponsored by other funders like CZI and Kaiser. And one of the things that has come up over the last month or so is an identification of a need to have greater coordination, especially for areas that are of concern, like East Palo Alto, like North Fair Oaks. We want to make sure that all these entities are sharing information with each other, sharing best practices with each other, also sharing geographic concentration with each other, so we don't have two different groups knocking on the same door, one after the other, and oversaturating. And so that's an area where we feel and have been asked by our partners to play a little bit more of a coordination role. We've started that effort in East Palo Alto a few weeks ago, and then just this week we started in the Office of Community Affairs, and Emma Gonzalez and her team are helping to coordinate those efforts in North Fair Oaks now as well. We are also developing and continuing to implement vaccine education resources and forming a task force for that purpose. We know that for those who are not yet vaccinated, there may be a variety of reasons and needs, and these and our unvaccinated residents may need to be reached in different ways. And we really want materials and strategies that meet our residents where they are, and to help them make the decisions that are right for their families. And so we understand that's an ongoing process. We're going to continue to learn from our partners and from the community. And so we have identified this as an ongoing need for us to continue this development and evolution of our outreach and to share best practices on that front. And then, of course, our epidemiologists are continuing to study the vaccination data, continuing to identify those communities, those neighborhoods, those demographics where we have a higher concentration of unvaccinated, and really trying to get everybody, like I said, to that county average, which is, you know, plateauing around 88%. Might get as high as 90%, that would be fantastic. But we really want all of our residents to get at that, and all of our communities to get at that same level. Next slide. I think that's the last one. Terrific. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions the council may have.
I see Councilmember Rodriguez has his hand up. Ever go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Justin. Very thorough report. I'm happy to see, some of that progress. I was wondering, what's the outreach that's being conducted here in North Fair Oaks to advertise or announce that a clinic, drive-through and walk-ins at the fair clinic?
Yeah, we are doing all sorts of outreach, and it's not just us. There's a lot of partners doing it too. Redwood City Together is convening and doing outreach for this clinic as well. It ranges from, social media sharing with partners to share with their clients and food distribution sites, whatever they might be doing, as well as canvassing and flyering along those lines. And just really try to spread the word. One of the things that we've really tried to do is create a consistent clinic now. And so it's just, people know now every Wednesday, every Sunday, it's going to be at that clinic, so that over time, the word just gets around that that's where you go if you want to get vaccinated on those days. But we're trying to share it broadly. We encourage all of our partners to share it broadly. And if you all have any, suggestions for ways that we can help get the word out, please, we welcome that.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions from the council? I don't see any other hands raised right now. I had one for you, Justin. The number that really jumped out at me was the 85 plus population at only 56% vaccinated. That surprised me somewhat, given the emphasis that was put on the older population early in the process. Any reasons for that, and any specific outreach plan for that population?
We have had an outreach plan for the older population since January. We actually thought we were doing pretty well. And then about a month ago, the state changed the denominator on us. They updated their population numbers, and we a little bit, and it was concerning. And so we continue to work through, a variety of mechanisms to get at the older adult population. We really think that that's a population that many will prefer to get it with their provider, and will feel the most comfortable, when their provider can give it to them. So that's one avenue. We are doing outreach to senior centers for those who are still connected or still have activities at local senior centers. We have a program for the homebound population. And if you're not familiar with this, thank you for asking the question, because actually, Brooks, I want to raise this. If you go to any resident, if you sign on to My Turn and register for it, and if you say, I have trouble getting to a clinic, I have, difficulty, accessibility issues, there is a homebound effort. We have a vendor who will go to your house and give you the vaccine in your home, so you do not have to go anywhere. We've had that for a while. We've had some good uptake, but we still have capacity to do more there. And one of the biggest challenges we have found with that is getting folks comfortable answering the phone when we call, and then setting up an appointment. We have these lists, and we call and call and call, and you have to call maybe 8 times before you reach the homebound population. That's our experience. We even partnered with a fire agency to see if maybe being called by a first responder would help with that. And we saw similar results. So if you all know anybody who's homebound, whether an older adult or otherwise, please have them sign up on My Turn, and then please let them know, and encourage them to answer the phone when we call. But those are our strategies. But this is something that's going to be ongoing, and we welcome any learnings or ideas that our partners may have for how to continue to reach the older adult population, because of course that's a very vulnerable population for complications from COVID. So we want to continue to do what we can to reach to get those numbers up.
Yeah, that was a reason for my question. Ever, I see your hand up as well.
Yeah, sorry, one more. Justin, does this site over at the Ferox Clinic includes testing as well, or not?
No, that particular one doesn't. I don't have the testing schedule at my fingertip, but I will put it in the chat, the link on the schedule on that. I believe we're still doing testing in the parking lot of 2500 Middlefield, but let me put the information in the chat later on and look that up.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Any other questions from council members for Justin?
And if I could say one more thing, thank you. The pop-up opportunities are great. We don't do them all. As Gabriela was saying, there's one that's at the health event this weekend. There are a lot of these kinds of opportunities. We really encourage people to share information about it. We have no preference where people get vaccinated. We just want people to get vaccinated at places that work for them. And so check the websites, check My Turn, and there should be plenty of opportunities for anyone who's not vaccinated in the coming weeks. Thank you.
Thank you, Justin. Jennifer, do we have any public comment on this topic?
If anyone has a public comment, please raise your hand using the raise hand feature.
I see Roxana's hand up.
Okay, Roxana. We are accepting comments at the moment, so if you have 2 minutes to share your comment, please.
All right, thank you so much, Cher and Jennifer, and thank you, Justin, for the PowerPoint presentation with all those numbers. It's really nice to see. I do just wanted to share that I do have two nieces who were vaccinated at the North Fair Oaks Clinic site at KIP a couple months ago, and I actually was one of the volunteers there, helping nurses and just helping with registrations and all that translation stuff. So they actually they could not travel outside of the country because they were given a different card. It was not like the little card, the COVID card. It was like a paper. So the airport did not accepted that that paper, that verification proof of COVID. So I'm just worried that a lot of our families received this vaccination card, but it was not really like a card. The airport think that that is a copy. So I'm just wondering what the county is doing, because I had to support my nieces by calling the San Mateo County Health Department, and they did not know how to respond to us. So I just wanted to share that. Hopefully, this is not happening, but for what I know, it has been happening, and a lot of families are not able to travel outside of the country because they were given a different card. Thank you.
Through the chair, may I respond to that?
Yes, please do, Justin.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. That's the first that I've heard of that experience. And so thank you for passing it on. I will say, if anyone loses their card or needs verification, there is a state website where you can get confirmation of your vaccination status because the state tracks that information. And I will get that information to the clerk, and I'll try to put it in the chat if I can get it, so that even if you lose your card, or in this case, the card wasn't accepted by the airline, which is really disappointing. That's the first I heard of anything like that happening. You can get the official California record that I would think and hope would suffice for these purposes. So I'll put that information in the chat as soon as I can track it down.
Thanks, Justin. Any other public comment on this topic?
For the record, there are no Spanish public speakers at the moment.
Thank you very much, Clara. Next agenda item is an update on illegal fireworks in North Fair Oaks. The presentation is going to be done by County Council as well as Lieutenant Mark Myers of the Sheriff's Office. The floor is yours, gentlemen.
Great. Good evening, council members. It's good to be back. I actually represented the council before you upgraded to Tim Fox. Good for you. But no, good to be here and be able to provide an update on this amendment to the county's ordinance code and answer any questions y'all have. There's a presentation. I don't know if y'all have that. I have it. I can pilot that if that's easier, if I can share my screen.
Yes, if you may please share your screen. That would be great. Thank you.
Is that in the proper presentation mode? Can you all see that?
Yes.
Great. All right, good. So I think I'll probably start with kind of why we kind of undertook these amendments to the fireworks code. Kind of one reason was, frankly, it hadn't been updated in about 30 years, and it was time for a refresh. And we had worked with Redwood City that a couple of years ago had updated their fireworks ordinance. Santa Clara County had also updated its fireworks ordinance. And so, we thought it was one, about time, and two, there's certainly a benefit in having consistency among, our geographic neighbors. And so that was, another reason. And, probably most acutely though, The biggest reason was, just last year's fire season and kind of what's ahead in the horizon for fire seasons. And I saw Dan Belleville was in the meeting, and I'm sure he could speak to this much better than I could. But some of the findings we included in our in the ordinance amendment were last year, and this is probably old news for y'all, but last year nearly 10,000 fires burned over 4.2 million acres, which is more than 4% of the state's total acreage of land, making last year the largest wildfire season recorded in our state's modern history. And that's probably no surprise to San Mateo County residents, given our experience with the CZU complex fire and, that apocalyptic kind of, ever dark day we had in August of last year. And so the risks of fire with unpermitted fireworks have always been high, and those risks just continue to grow as we have more and more severe wildfire seasons across the state and in the county. Another reason was we did some research, and you'll see when we look at the details of the ordinance why this was included. But many of the injuries that occur with unpermitted fireworks are suffered by children. And in fact, children under 4 actually suffer the highest per capita rate of injuries requiring serious medical care and emergency services. And so it's, they're just dangerous, and it was about time to update it. So that was kind of the context as to why now, basically. But kind of knowing that, I think it'll probably help you understand why we made some of the changes we made. So just to summarize the changes, move this bar for 1 sec. So what we did is we created strict liability for those who have the care, custody, or control of a minor who violates the ordinance. And that flows from kind of the disproportionate injuries suffered by children. And 2, also we're holding strictly liable social hosts where a violation occurs on their property. We also, and I'll talk more about that in detail in a bit. We also increased the fines for violations. And we also included a provision where anyone who has multiple violations in any 12-month period is held responsible for the county's costs of responding to the violations. And we can talk about that in more detail as well. And then we also updated appeal rights and procedures and the county's ability to collect fines and costs for the violations. So social hosts. And Lieutenant Myers can speak, I think, when he has his turn, he can speak about the enforcement hurdles that exists with violations of a fireworks ordinance, right? Often you have a firework that's set off and everyone scatters. No one sticks around to wait for the cops to show up. And so it's really hard to hold someone responsible. And so it's imperfect. We admit that. We're not going to solve all illegal discharges of fireworks, but one way to potentially help with that issue is to hold social hosts strictly liable. And a social host is defined as the owner of the property where the violation occurs. Anyone who has a right to use, possess, or occupy the property where it occurs. So you're a renter, you're Airbnb-ing the home. And thirdly, anyone who hosts or organizes the gathering where the illegal discharge occurs. So if you're hosting a party in a common area, if you're hosting a party at a park, you'd be responsible for the violation as a social host. There are some exceptions. So a property owner is not considered a social host and is not strictly liable if at the time of the violation, the owner had either rented the property to another or the violation was committed by an individual who was unlawfully present or had trespassed on the owner's property. That kind of makes sense. And the owner wasn't present, and the owner had no prior knowledge that the violation was going to occur. And another exception for the strict liability provision is folks living in an apartment complex. If the illegal firework is discharged from one unit, all other kind of apartment residents are not held liable, which I think also makes sense. So the increased fines and consequences, before the amendments, a violation was treated as a code compliance violation subject to administrative penalties under the county's ordinance code. And those penalties were $100 for the first violation, $200 for the second, $500 for the third. Also, it's imperfect because under our ordinance code, you have to give someone a notice before you actually issue a citation. So they have 14 days to cure the violation, which doesn't really work in this situation. And so what we did is we increased the fines to a fine that is issued immediately. Don't have to give kind of the pre-notice. And we made the fine $1,000 for all violations. We also created a separate category where the violation causes serious bodily injury or property damage. That is subject to a separate $1,000 fine, kind of in addition to the underlying fine. And it's treated as a misdemeanor, which is separately punishable in addition to the fine by up to 6 months in jail. As I indicated earlier, violators who have multiple violations within any 12-month period are liable for the public safety personnel response to the violation, which means they pay the full freight of all public safety responders to the violation. So when they arrive to when they leave, the violator is responsible for the prorated salary of all those responders. And that's basically it. I can turn it over to Lieutenant Myers, who can probably speak about any kind of enforcement issues and other kind of fun things.
Yeah, can I just jump in real quick before Lieutenant Myers talks? I just wanted to update the council on how we are getting the word out about these changes to the ordinance code. I know the sheriff's office is also doing outreach and doing door hangers in partnership, I believe, with Menlo Fire. In addition, we are a postcard went out from the county to all households in North Fair Oaks, alerting residents to these key changes. Hopefully you have received it. If you're not, you should receive it very soon. We also are getting some billboards, I believe one on Middlefield and one on Bay. Unfortunately, there was a printing mistake. They were already supposed to be up, but they're getting that fixed, and it will be up before the July 4th weekend. And so we're trying to get the word out about these changes so that folks know that there are increased penalties for fireworks this year. And with that, I'll hand it over to Lieutenant Myers.
Hi, can you all hear me? Okay, good. Just first, it's nice to meet everyone. Just first, I want to update. We had a retirement about 2 months ago of Captain Kunkel up in Millbrae. So when he retired, Captain Corpus moved up there. So right now we're in the promotional testing process. So the next captain's test is going to be, I believe, the 12th or 13th of July. And then a replacement should be picked for the headquarters in North Fair Oaks area, probably about a month after that. So probably in about 2 months, you'll have your new captain for the headquarters area. With regards to the fireworks, probably a couple weeks ago, what we started doing is we started doing our social media blast. We sent, if I can share a screen here, let me see. We sent out social media posts, both in Spanish and in English on Instagram, Facebook, and we tagged or liked all the other allied agencies such as Redwood Fire, Redwood Police Department, and the Menlo Park Fire District, which covers the North Forks area. So we've been putting out the information about the new ordinance on social media. Like we said, we're also doing the door hangers. The door hangers are not being distributed all over North Forks. We've kind of identified some of the real problem areas and targeted those areas. Let me just show one other thing here real quick. In addition to that, on our side of the house, what we've been doing is educating our deputies, additionally to the other health and safety violation codes that are out there with regards to the sales of fireworks and some other violations maybe not covered under the ordinance. So we've been educating our personnel as well as the public, basically updating with the ordinance and getting all our people up to speed. Hold on one sec. But with regard to the ordinance, so I'll show you one other screen here real quick, just so you can kind of see a problem of what we're dealing with. This is our shot spotter. Can you all see that? So this is for the last 7 days. It says gunfire, but I've tuned it down to show where it will actually detect fireworks. So you can see we've kind of limited it to where the blue areas are, where the real target areas are, where we're having our main issues. It's, of course, right around Fair Oaks Elementary, the Stanford, Halsey, Warrington, and Hampshire areas. And then on the west side, where we get a lot of complaints, is on Westmoreland, Dumbarton, in the Devonshire area. Yeah. So we're able to use this along with the calls for service, because a lot of times the non-emergency or 911 calls, they kind of don't really give us a great location, let's say in the area, or I heard them a few blocks away. So at least with ShotSpotter, we're allowed to kind of go in and know where to send our patrol cars and send the deputies to try and fight the firework issue that we're having. Unfortunately, no one lights a firework off when the deputies are present. So we run into the problem of it's just really hard for us to, right now we've written 0 tickets for the ordinance just because it's really difficult. People don't light fireworks off when we're present. Usually it's as soon as we go around the corner, they light them off and then they scatter. So what we're going to be doing is maybe taking a different approach, and might have to send some undercover units out, maybe using drones or something like that if we're having a very big problem area where if the deputies are around the area, they're not going to light them off, but maybe we can observe them from a distance from a drone and actually see, what house they go into and whatnot. So that's some of the challenges we're facing as far as enforcing the ordinance from the law enforcement aspect side. Other things we've been doing, like I said, the electronic signs have been going up. We've been working with Redwood City PD, Menlo Fire for the actual plan for 4th of July. So for that day, we're going to have a joint briefing between both departments. We're going to be pushing out probably 4 to 5 extra patrol cars, double manned, specifically for the Redwood City and North Forks area. We're going to be on a separate radio channel, so those units will not be responding to other calls for service. They'll be specifically for fireworks suppression. In addition to that, we'll probably have drones up to get an overview of where some of the gatherings are at. And I truly think on 4th of July will be when it'll be much easier to enforce or issue citations for the ordinance, because that's when you're going to have the gatherings. Right now, what we're seeing is mostly, just the neighborhood kids, unfortunately lighting a lot off and then scattering. We're not really having the at least what I haven't been told, the big gatherings yet, which usually occur on 4th of July. So, are there any questions regarding the fireworks or what we're doing?
Any questions from council members? Juan Carlos, I see your hand up.
Yes. I wanted to congratulate the Sheriff's Department and really the whole coalition of all San Mateo County law enforcement and fire in this regard. I happen to live in one of the hot spots that you mentioned in Warrington. And let me tell you, it was like a war zone. And it wasn't very hard to pick out who was doing the fireworks. There was tons of debris, fireworks debris. I mean, piles of it. And last year there was undercover sheriffs, and honestly, I mean, I was on the phone all night. All they would come and say, "Hey guys, knock it off." That was it. And it was very sad to see. There's toddlers in the street, some toddlers without shoes on. It was just a disgrace and really unacceptable. And I don't like to use my strong expressions in this regard, but when you live in that neighborhood and in the street, and I have young children of my own, it's very disheartening to see that, and it's unacceptable for us to live in those conditions. So I'm glad to see a unifying effort, and I'm glad to see some teeth behind the policy now, and the outreach that you're doing, particularly in the hotspots that you mentioned, are just going to be crucial. So it's just very important for the community to understand that this is unacceptable. We're not going to live under the siege of constant harassment of this fireworks. So I just wanted to congratulate you and on this efforts. And I'm very certain that this year will be a different 4th of July.
Councilmember Whitney, Blair.
Yeah, one question. I saw the literature going out, and I've seen it both on Nextdoor, Facebook, and all the other outlets. And every time I drive El Camino, I see the lit sign about it's illegal. It's in Spanish and English. One thing that occurred to me is like an amnesty box. People have family and friends, and they may come back from Central Valley or somewhere else and have some, and then after all the messaging, realize it's a really bad idea to hold on to this and set it off and get everyone in trouble. And conversely, like parents might be cleaning the hall closet or their kid's room and find it, and they don't want anyone to go to jail. They just want to get rid of it. And so if there was like an amnesty box somewhere like by a fire station where they could just dump it, no questions asked, it would be a good way to like get stuff off the streets. People are still probably gonna, buy it and shoot it off, but it's an outlet to have an amnesty box for people that are trying to, count me out on this one. And then I had a comment, the $1,000, that seems like a magic number in the criminal justice system. Like if it's punishable by a fine of $1,000 or a year in jail, it's a felony. And we're dealing with everything from juvenile offenders to young adults in their 20s and 30s. But it's a very serious thing. It leads to loss of property, and in some cases, gross bodily injury with hands and fingers lost and all sorts of stuff. But it concerns me about hammering someone with multiple felonies, a teenager or a young adult that just might be on the wrong path and drinking and getting stoned and doing stupid stuff. I don't think they want to start their life with 2 or 3 felonies. Anyway, that's it.
Just to clarify, the violation would be a misdemeanor. It wouldn't be a felony. And the $1,000 actually is the highest penalty amount that the county can impose under the government code. As Lieutenant Myers, I think, pointed out, the state penal code has additional penalties and fines for, higher volume possession of dangerous fireworks. I think that those fines range up to $50,000 per violation, and in fact are felonies for, if you're holding, commercial volume and you're possessing dangerous fireworks. But violation of the county's ordinance is a misdemeanor, not a felony.
I see.
Hey, Mr. Whitney, too, I like that idea about an amnesty box. And because what we do currently is any fireworks that are left in the street or abandoned, we take those to, I believe, Fire Station 9. We actually have to bring in it's basically a bomb bunker that we put all the ordnance in. And we actually have to get one for the more commercial grade and then we have another one for the more civilian grade. So I'll talk to the fire guys, because unfortunately no one will come and turn them into us. But I'll talk to fire, and that's something else that we can just put out on social media. Hey, if you have leftover fireworks or fireworks you want to get rid of, there's an amnesty box at your local fire station. And I like that idea, and I'll try and get fire on board real quick with it. And then, yeah, with the fines and all that too. Also, I mean, ultimately the fines issued are up to the judge. So, you know, I don't think the judges are going to, you know, unless it's an egregious violation, if it's a first time violation for someone, the judge have some leniency in far as, you know, what fine they are going to impose or something like that. So, but I like the amnesty box idea, and I'll get working on that.
Councilmember Rodriguez, I see your hand up, Ever.
Yeah, thank you. Good seeing you, Brian. Actually, a couple of questions for Brian. Is this ordinance code on fireworks countywide?
No, it's only in the unincorporated area. You know, there are certain times, like for COVID related situations, when there's a declared emergency, when we can enforce our police powers countywide in the cities, but generally we can only do that in the unincorporated area. And so this is one of those cases where it's only unincorporated area. But you know, that was one of the reasons why we wanted to coordinate, for example, with Redwood City and other kind of jurisdictions. So one, there was some consistency and kind of those lines. We had hoped that perhaps our ordinance would be a model for other jurisdictions.
And with that said, Brian, Menlo Park just revised their ordinance to mirror the county ordinance, I think, within the last week or so. So to your point, it is happening.
Great.
Yeah, and precisely. So my question is because, you know, some of the surrounding areas of Redwood City, I've actually seen, you know, also folks, you know, burning fireworks, and I would hate, you know, for North Fair Oaks to become the only scapegoat for fireworks, because I've heard them, I've seen them, you know, happening also in the adjacent cities, and it just wouldn't be fair, you know, to blame it on North Fair Oaks. But also another question I had was, you know, the slides that you presented had pretty good summaries that, you know, would be nice to have and share in social media, because, you know, it's an exact summary of what you know, that ordinance has. And so that if those are available someplace, you know, on a website or something, they would be great, so that we can share them.
Certainly. Happy to share them. And I think maybe I had some notes at the bottom that I might delete, just they were for my reference, but I'll make those deletions, and then I can provide them either to someone here or maybe someone with, maybe I'll go through Justin, that he might know the best person to share it with.
Yeah, that would be great. We will certainly share the slides. And then, you know, I neglected to say that our Office of Community Affairs is also doing social media posts on this, and has versions of sort of the bulleted highlights, like strict liability for parents and social hosts, to reinforce those messages in ways that can be digested on social media. So we will adapt some of that information for those posts as well.
Great, thank you. And one last suggestion. I think if, you know, this issue of fireworks needs a bigger effort to change things statewide. You know, the dangers that they pose, not only for people, but, you know, in terms of generating awful fires, are just so high, particularly now with this drought. And, you know, they've always been, but I think we just need to step it up at a statewide level, you know, to do something about it, because, you know, I mean, if they're freely available in the Central Valley, they're going to make it, you know, everywhere else in the state. So just wanted to put that comment in.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other questions from council members? Do we have any public comment on this topic?
If anyone has a public comment, please use the raise hand feature. Okay, Gabriela Valencia, you will have 2 minutes to share your public comment. You will have 2 minutes now, so let me add you. All right, Gabriela, you have 2 minutes.
She appears to be muted.
You're
Hello,
on
can
mute.
you hear me?
There we are. Yes, we
Yes.
can.
Yes. Hi, good evening. My name is Gabriela Valencia, and I've been a resident of North Fair Oaks for about 25 years. And, you know, the fireworks in North Fair Oaks has been a problem for a long time, as many of you who've lived here and or worked here a long time, you know, this has been a long-term problem. And last year specifically seemed to be worse, which was very concerning because people were supposed to be and you know, not socializing, but we are already dealing with this problem. Many of you hear this at night mostly, and I think that if there is increased monitoring already happening at this time, I'm just wondering why were we still hearing all these fireworks at night. And we as residents, we cannot report this problem fast enough, because when we call, we have to go through the dispatch, and by the time we get through, the fireworks are over. And so I think the increased monitoring and enforcement is the key, and I'm so glad to hear that that's what the main effort is going to be. And I know that many times you can't be at the right place at the right time, but I think with increased monitoring, you will catch many of these things, because those of us that live here, we hear it all the time, and we're just thinking, okay, if we hear it all the time, somebody down in the sheriff's office is probably hearing it as well. So, and I'm so glad that you have the strategy of trying to focus first on the areas that are most problematic, and that you've already identified those. I think that's really
Hi,
great.
Gabriela. Sorry, time's up. My apologies.
That's okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for that input, Gabriela. Any other public comment?
Okay, Chris, you will have also 2 minutes. You should be able to speak now.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thanks. Okay, so I just wanted to echo what somebody else had mentioned in the past about deputies coming out and telling folks to sort of knock it off. I've called several times, and of course I know there's an issue where people scatter and they're not around when the deputies come out. But I did speak to a deputy, and he said, well, I come out, and if we find them, we just tell them to knock it off. And then if I have to come out again, then we usually find them. And I found that extremely frustrating, hearing that. It's like, why isn't something being done about that on the first violation? Because if they know that they're just going to get a slap on the wrist, then there's not really any consequence to their action, and they can go ahead and keep doing it. So just hoping we can get something resolved around that little slap on the wrist, and actually start handing out citations the first time. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Clara, any public comments on your end?
No, there are no Spanish public speakers.
Okay, thank you. Back to you, Chair.
Well, thank you very much, Council and Lieutenant, for your presentation on this. I believe the Lieutenant's coming back next month to report on the results of the increased patrols and 4th of July. So hopefully we'll see some statistics that are favorable, particularly compared to last year. Thank you very much for your presentations tonight.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.
Nice to meet you.
Next up, we have a presentation on the multi-jurisdictional local hazard mitigation plan. And the presenter is Dan Belville, the Director of Public Safety Communications for the county. Dan, the floor is yours.
Good evening, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much for that introduction. It's nice to see everyone this evening. I know about half the group, so it's nice to see all of you, and those that I haven't met, it's a pleasure to meet you via Zoom this evening. I am Dan Belville, and I work for the County of San Mateo in the Office of Emergency Services. In fact, I'm calling from our Regional Operations Center and the EOC, the Emergency Operations Center, which has been open for I think it's about 478 days today. So we're approaching a year and a half that we've been open. It's unprecedented, but I think it's appropriate that I mention that because what we're talking about tonight is preparing for potential hazards. Joining me is Ann Ludwig. Ann, I don't know if your camera's on, but if you can wave to the group. Ann and I are going to do a short slide presentation and happy to take questions at the end and provide some answers for you. Ann is the project manager, and although this project resides with me in the Office of Emergency Services, it has taken a small army to try to accomplish what we're doing currently. Not only is it the Office of Emergency Services, but it includes the CMO's office, Office of Sustainability, Department of Public Works, Planning and Building. There are a lot of people in the county that are involved in this project, and we'll talk a little bit about the timeline and the complexity of it. It's a pretty short timeline to do an awful lot of work. I was actually thinking, I'm kind of chuckling earlier, that Councilmember Rodriguez probably could do the presentation. He's one of our steering committee team members and has been very instrumental in helping us navigate through this plan. So thank you, Mr. Rodriguez. It's nice to see you tonight as well. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and flip through my slides here. Jennifer, if that's you running, and I'm not sure, but thank you for navigating this evening. But what is the mitigation plan? Well, first of all, I just want to mention that the plans are every 5 years. And the last time the county's plan was done was in 2016. And this time we're identifying it as an MJ, or a multi-jurisdictional local hazard mitigation plan. About 25 years ago, when I was involved in these, I've been a first responder in that capacity for many decades. And about 25 years ago, these LHMPs were very sort of thin, flimsy pamphlets that police and fire and maybe the planners put together, maybe 10 or 15 pages. And now they're very, very complex. They're very robust. And you'll see tonight that we've tried to hit just about every corner of the county. But in essence, as you can see on the slide there, what we are doing with our plan is assessing the hazard vulnerabilities and identifying mitigation actions, or things that will help minimize these actions that our jurisdiction will face. And it's primarily to reduce the level of injury and property damage and the community disruption that comes from these kinds of events. And I'll talk about how real they are, at least in my time as a first responder and here at the county. And currently, like I said, 478 days in the Emergency Operations Center. When we do adopt it with all of our partner agencies, it will make us eligible, or allow us to be more eligible for the various types of pre and post disaster community assistance. And essentially what has happened is FEMA has shifted the focus on preemptive strike, preparing ourselves before the emergency rather than waiting until after and paying for all the damage and a recovery effort that it takes. So this here is just kind of a simple emergency management wheel, if you will. It goes clockwise, so sometimes you have to focus on these slides and figure out what they're trying to decipher. But I would say years ago, if you look in the blue, we would be preparing or trying to prevent an emergency. We'd be preparing for it, and then there might be an incident. That little star on the right there might be some kind of an incident, and it seems like they were fewer, less frequent, less complex, the opposite of what they are today. We'd respond to the emergency, and then we would recover, and that cycle would just continue around. Well, now mitigation is that orange box on the left. That's the focus that I was talking about with regard to what FEMA is doing. We're trying to mitigate these problems before they occur and focus on that prior to the incident rather than after the incident. So that's the key as to what we're trying to achieve with this local hazard mitigation plan. And then I think Brian had spoke to it earlier about the fires and the complexity and the frequency of what we're seeing is that's really what's happening nationwide. It just seems these incidents are more frequent and more complex. So this is more important than ever before, this mitigation. Next slide, please. So the MJ here, the multi-jurisdictional, is really this. It's all the folks that are participating in this very robust plan. So for the first time ever in the county, we have all of the cities and towns, as you can see on the left there. So it's 100% including unincorporated county. And then on the right there, we have a myriad of multiple special districts, all the way from fire service to sewer districts and everything in between. We're going to have about 37 partners, I think. Perhaps only one is not going to make it all the way through. So pulling all of these folks together with their various interests and concerns and issues revolving around mitigation in their specific areas of the county has certainly not been an easy task. Anytime you have a myriad of different organizations involved, there's a lot of push and pull. I would characterize the project as flowing very, very well into the circumstances that we're all partners. And we're very excited about this because most importantly, FEMA will view this multi-jurisdictional local hazard mitigation plan as one where there's collaboration. And we're hoping at the end that when grant money, for example, becomes available, it perhaps can push us closer to the front of the line for receiving grants so we can mitigate some of the hazards that we've identified. Next slide, please. So what are the risks? I think it goes without saying, just this morning alone, we all woke up to the hazard or the building collapse in Florida, that terrible tragedy there. There's natural disasters, there's human caused disasters, and there's technological. The Florida incident would be on the bottom there. It would be some kind of a failure in the structural design of that building or whatever occurred. It's likely that that's where that occurred. Of course, it could have been a terrorist attack, but if you look at this list here, I remember the last time I did a presentation, I mentioned to the group that having been in this county for such a long time, I personally have experienced just about every one of these, and I'm certain many of you have as well. But we've had slides in this county where a family was trapped and a couple of children were killed many years ago. We're seeing the extreme weather conditions. Fire is front and center. We've had a number of tsunamis. There's cyber threats all the time, internationally. There's concern about, our networks, our internet, our radio system network. In January, we had, I believe there were 8 or 9 emergencies at one time. January 19th, we had fires, we had the high wind events. We were dealing with COVID vaccinations and COVID testing, as Justin had spoke to earlier, and 5 of our radio towers went down. So these things are happening all the time. We try to put a lid on them. We try to correct them right away. And obviously they aren't as front and center as, for example, the CZU fire was, but they certainly are there. Hazardous materials releases are always an ever-present concern. We have, 101 and trucks navigating through the county all the time. We have the pipeline failure in San Bruno. So these things are very real. And these are the things that each of the partners, the annex partners and the jurisdictions are looking to address. Next slide, please. And here's some mitigation strategies. These are common things that many of you have seen, have been exposed to, and perhaps have participated in. Seismic retrofitting of buildings and bridges. We know that Caltrans alone did a substantial amount of retrofitting our bridges a number of years ago. And redundancy in water systems and fuel. This building alone is self-sustaining for up to 2 or 3 weeks, depending on how many people are here and how we use our resources. We have 2 10,000-gallon water tanks right outside the building from me. We have 2 redundant generators, massive generators, and we have fuel that supply those generators. So these are the kinds of things that we're talking about. Tree planting is obviously more important than ever before with what we're seeing with climate change. Vegetation management is a real hot one now. I think that fourth bullet down, we're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars and a significant focus through the Board of Supervisors to manage the vegetation because these fires are spreading so quickly with the wind events. And then community centers for these off the grid, when the PSPS events, we have to have people go into these cooling shelters. So you've seen these things, but these are the kinds of strategies that we're looking at throughout the county. Next slide, please. And then of course the benefits, I've talked a little bit about this in the first couple of slides, is hopefully it'll allow for us to be more eligible for grant funding. We expect that some grant funding will start to be released right before the fall, perhaps September, October, in that area. And we will be ready for that. We're already seeking assistance in the form of grant writing. So once our mitigation plan is ready to move forward, we want to be sort of shovel ready. So we're excited about that. It does improve our understanding of the risks and the vulnerabilities. People are learning more, are becoming more aware of these emergencies and the kind of things that will happen. We're trying to reduce those negative effects and encourage some sustainable actions throughout the process. But really, it's great that we're collaborating for the first time with all those jurisdictions, and having us all come together, we think is going to make for a terrific mitigation plan. Next slide. So we have a project timeline that I'm going to let Ann talk about. I have to publicly thank Ann once again. She's been helping me shepherd this thing through, and I certainly wouldn't be able to do it without her. But Ann, why don't you take over now, and I'll let you finish up the rest of the slides.
Thanks, Dan. Well, as Dan said, we've had a lot of incredible participation from our partners. And that was really our first step in February, is identifying the partners who wanted to participate in this activity. You can see that we've had a two-track process where we've been working with our partners on doing plan updates. Several of the partners participated in our 2016 plan, but we have at least as many new partners. So we've been doing plan updates. We've been bringing people on board who are not familiar with the LHMP process. And that began in February. Right now in June, we're really in the final throes. We're in the really fun part, which is developing the actions that we intend to move forward for the next 5 years of this plan. And it's been really interesting to see really what has been accomplished since 2016. It's a little intimidating to see what is ahead of us, but it's always good to see that there has been progress made. By the end of August, we will have a plan submitted to Cal OES and FEMA. We believe that the review process will last anywhere from 30 to 90 days, and that'll take us through the September through November timeline. Sometime maybe in October, maybe November, but certainly by December, we'll be moving forward with the plan as approved by Cal OES and FEMA and moving that forward to the Board of Supervisors. A very big part of this process has been our outreach and engagement. Meetings like we're having right now to inform the community about what's going on. We've done surveys. We have our second survey out, and I did post the link to that survey in our chat. We've had workshops, public workshops, where we've shown the community what kind of information we're looking at and the research that's being done. And we've had an incredible participation rate. We had 87 people at our first public workshop. And as much as COVID has brought some bad things, I do think that it would have been hard to get 87 people in a room on a weekday evening for a workshop. And so we were quite excited to see the number of people who participated. We've done any number of community presentations like today, and all of our partners are doing the same within their communities. That will continue through, we're very heavy in that in June, we'll continue that in July, and then in August, we'll be working with the community to review the draft. Other things we've done with respect to outreach and education to ensure equitable participation in this process, we made a very concerted effort to make sure that our community-based organizations were represented on our steering committee. Our consultants say that they have never had a community that truly had a 50% CBO and a 50% public agency participation, and we have done that. And as Dan recognized, Mr. Rodriguez is a member of our committee, and we definitely thank him for his participation. We've also done a lot of work to help both the county staff as well as our planning partner staff really look at what does hazard mitigation mean for all of our communities, and how can we address equity when we're developing the actions. So we've developed a paper entitled Recommendations for Addressing Equity, and that paper is available on our website, and I also posted the link to our website in the chat. The steering committee worked very closely with us, and we included a number of equity goals to guide our planning and our work. And those goals, we will be going back to those goals as we develop our mitigation actions to make sure that we've met them through the course of this work. Our steering committee meetings have been open public meetings, and we've held one public workshop to date, and there's another coming up in August. We've done extensive outreach through our surveys and through focus groups and other activities with contracted community-based organizations. And most importantly, I think, we're developing a post-plan implementation framework to make sure that we continue to engage our CBO partners and that we continue this work through the 5 years that the plan will exist until the next time we update, so that we can see the progress that has been made. This is our schedule for June through August. June and July, we're working really heavily right now with our planning partners on developing the actions that will take place over the next 5 years, and not just developing them in 37 different silos, but also making sure that we're collaborating with our partner organizations so that we're collaborating on vegetation management activities, we're collaborating on policies, we're collaborating on public education so that we can really get the most bang for our buck and make sure that the community is hearing and seeing very consistent actions. In August, we will be posting the draft of the plan for public comment, and we'll be hosting a public workshop to review the draft on August 12th. Our comments on the draft are due back on August 23rd, because by August 31st, we do need to submit the draft plan to Cal OES and FEMA for their review. The reason for that deadline is, as Dan noted earlier, we do need to be able to meet the deadlines for a new round of funding that is expected to be released in September, and that we hope we're successful in obtaining some grant funds to supplement the incredible work that's already being done by the county and by our planning partners. We're happy to take questions, but I did want to provide this information to you, my contact information, our project email, and our project website, which has a lot of information about how to participate, our events, resources, and our list of our planning partners. So with that, any questions for Dan and I? We're happy to.
Are there any questions from council members for Ann or Dan?
I do.
I see Councilmember Rodriguez, hand up. as well as Councilmember Cerrillo. Ever, go ahead, please, first.
Yeah, first of all, thank you for coming to share the information. I couldn't have done, as good a job the two of you have done. So thanks very much for bringing this information to the North Fair Oaks Council. Although there aren't too many attendees to this meeting, the meeting is recorded, and I know for a fact that a lot of people watch the video, at their own leisure. So that'll be beneficial. So one of the questions I had was in regards to being able to identify community centers that may be located specifically in unincorporated areas, particularly here in North Fair Oaks. Is there somewhere a map of those places that people could identify and learn about those locations? And also I'd be interested in finding out if some of those places will be eligible for upgrades when the time comes.
And do you want to tackle that one with planning and building, or do you want me to?
Well, I'll get started and please agree, Dan. We are working using the existing network of centers, respite centers, that can be used for evacuation for people who need to leave their homes for any reason. There are some of those facilities identified right now, but one of the mitigation actions that we are putting forward in the plan is to develop a much more robust network of centers and to be able to communicate out to the community where those centers are, especially given that not all the centers can be opened at the same time. It's a very fluid situation depending on the emergency that we're dealing with at the time. We do believe that by, again, collaborating with our planning partners, that this mitigation is going to be eligible for grant opportunities. And we're looking at things like making sure that our disabled community has the access they need to these centers. So making sure they're accessible, making sure that we have air filtration systems, that we have generators at the community centers so that they can remain open under a variety of conditions. And we are looking at the unincorporated area, but we're looking at a network throughout the county as well so that we can shift people to locations as needed.
And I think that's right on the money. And I'll only add for Mr. Rodriguez that we do have partial lists. And because we're collaborating, the reason why we don't have complete lists is because we are collaborating for the first time with all jurisdictions. So hopefully what Ann alluded to is that we'll tie all of that together and make ourselves more eligible. So for example, the county benefited from generators in the last 18 months or so for redundant power. And these are the kinds of things that might go into a shelter that has a cooling capability, but in order to be eligible for it, we have to provide redundant power, as she said. So again, we have partial lists. We hope to have them be complete lists, but I think we're heading towards the direction that it appears your question was interested in.
Thank you.
I see a question from Councilmember Cerrillo. Beatrice, go ahead.
Yes, I think Ever gave me the information. The meetings that you have held are recorded for later viewing?
Yes, they are on our website. All of our public meetings, both the steering committee meetings and the workshop. If you go to our events page and you go to the bottom, we have YouTube videos posted for all of those meetings.
Okay, because it seems I'm always like working or something else, and then I miss the meeting. I missed the meeting today, and it's like, oh my gosh, okay. So good. Thank you for the information.
Any other questions from council members? Do we have any public comment, Jennifer, on this topic?
I don't see any public comment. If anybody has one, please use the raise hand feature. No, Clara, is anyone on the line have a public
I
comment?
have no public comment from the Spanish channel.
Okay, thank you. Back to you, Chair.
Well, thank you very much. I was wondering if it'd be possible to get a follow-up presentation once the draft, I suppose, once it's been reviewed by Cali OES and FEMA, but prior to the presentation to the Board of Supervisors, as a way, perhaps the council could review that and recommend its adoption by the Board of Supervisors if there's time for that prior to in the time frame of this process. Would that be possible?
We're happy to do a presentation anytime. So we worked through Emma and some other folks at the county. So we're happy to present at any time, and we are available, Mr. Chair. So yes, the answer is yes.
If that makes sense, Dan, I don't want you to present information to us that might be found in another area, but it seems to me that once FEMA has reviewed the document, we in a sense have a plan, and it would be interesting to see that prior to its adoption by the board.
Yeah, I think so. And I think maybe what we could do is we could try to find, if you will, the sweet spot, what might be a good time to have a conversation, because perhaps something will come up between now and then. And let's provide you with some oomph in the presentation rather than just, okay, it's done. So.
Okay. Totally up to you in terms of when you'd like to come back and do that. But that would be terrific to hear from you again as this process goes through.
Okay, Mr. Chair. So on behalf of Ann and myself and everyone at the county, I saw that Ann Stillman was on board too from DPW, and Emma and everybody, Jennifer, the Deputy County Manager. Thank you all. Thanks for your time. Thank you for letting us be with you tonight. We appreciate it very much.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Our next agenda item is an update on the Middlefield Road Improvement Project. And for that, we have Christophe Lisage. Pardon me if I mangled that, who's a principal civil engineer with the Department of Public Works for the county. Christophe, it's your floor.
Great, thank you. Jennifer, can you share the PowerPoint, please?
Yes. Okay, ready?
Great, thank you. So like Chair Esser said, my name is Christophe Lisai. I'm the Principal Civil Engineer with the Department of Public Works. I'm one of the members from the Public Works team that's working on the project. And so I wanted to just give you an update since we had our last update to you at the November 19th, 2020 meeting. Just fun fact for you guys, I was actually one of the engineers that started working on this project. And so it's nice to see it going into construction. Next slide, please. As a reminder for people on the call that weren't involved during the design, the project limits we're working right now with are between Douglas Avenue to 6th Avenue. And so within those overall limits, we have different elements in the work. The main roadway improvements are going to be from Pacific Avenue to 5th Avenue. We're also including a utility underground of all the overhead lines. Those limits are going to be from MacArthur Avenue to 5th Avenue. And then we're also using this as an opportunity to replace and upgrade the sanitary sewer lines. And those limits are from Douglas Avenue to 6th Avenue. Next slide, please. So in terms of the layout and elements, the project includes a road diet. So what that means is we're changing the configuration from what currently exists, which is 2 lanes traveling in each direction, to 1 lane in each direction with a center turn lane. So this allows us to install additional width of sidewalk, as well as bike lanes with buffers. The parking is going to be modified from what's currently out there, which is angled to parallel. And then other aspects include new street and pedestrian lights. We're installing high visibility crosswalks at all of the intersections that are controlled. We're also using this as an opportunity to install rapid flash beacons. So those are those signs you see that kind of light up and identify, motorists that somebody's about to be crossing the roadway. Those are going to be installed at Dumbarton, 2nd and 4th Street or Avenue intersections with Middlefield. And then as far as amenities, we're going to be including new street trees, bike racks, benches, and trash receptacles. And then we're also installing green infrastructure. And so if you guys are not familiar with that, that's kind of some of that green like planting and brush you see at the intersections. And that helps us with treating stormwater as well as just helping with some nuisance flooding, and is a requirement by the regional board. Next slide, please. So this is a conceptual view, as you can see. This is what we are hoping that the end result will look like. You can see the buffered bike lane on either side of the road, which includes some green striping, some bike boxes, as well as a buffer between the parking and the bike lane, the crosswalk, some of the street lights, trees, and then the larger sidewalks, as well as bulb outs at intersections. Next slide, please. And so one area that we really wanted to focus on is the Redwood Junction Clinic. I think the majority of people on this meeting are familiar with that intersection. It's very unique and not ideal. And so as part of our project, we are going to be installing 3 new traffic signals. So these are going to be located at Hurlingham, the Clinic Driveway, and Pacific Avenue. We plan to interconnect all these to the railroad crossing. So what that means is whenever there's a train crossing, the lights will, the sequence of the traffic lights will change based on making sure that if there's any cars potentially on the railroad tracks, that those get through, and that we also prevent, any cars from going into the crossing. Next slide, please. Just to focus a little more on this area, we are paying special attention to Northside Avenue. So one key modification will be that we're turning part of it from Stanford Avenue into a one-way street. And so you can see kind of on the top of this exhibit, you're only going to be able to make a right-hand turn moving forward from Northside onto Middlefield. As part of that, we are installing a channelizer on Middlefield to prevent people from now making a right turn into that one-way street. And then we're also installing a raised median in the center line of Middlefield to prevent people from making a left from north side across the railroad track. So these are all safety improvements, they're required by both the railroad jurisdiction as well as just new standard practices in terms of what's the best operations for that area to make sure we have, safe passage over the railroad tracks. Next slide, please. So as many of you are aware, the county was also able to secure 2 lots for additional parking for businesses and patrons on Middlefield Road. As I previously mentioned, because we're changing the angled parking to parallel, that does result in a reduced number of parking spots. And so we were able to secure a parking lot at Middlefield and 2nd Avenue. That's actually where we had a meeting this morning with some of the businesses. You can see from this photo here is about 43 parking spaces that we were able to accommodate in that parking lot. There are some parking restrictions, which is 2-hour parking from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. and then no parking from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. If you could go to the next slide, please. So then the second parking lot, that's going to be located at the Berkshire Road at Huntington Avenue. It's a smaller lot. It holds about 16 spots for compact cars, but anything helps. And same kind of parking hours with 2-hour limits from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. Next slide, please. And so that was a brief overview of kind of how we got to the project design. I believe these following slides will be new updates since our last update for you guys. So as you can see, we advertised the project on October 23rd of last year. We made sure to reach out to as many contractors, bid boards, try to get the word out as much as possible so that we could get a large amount of contractors to bid on it and get the best price. We ended up getting 9 bids for the project, and the low bidder came from Granite Rock Construction. So their low bid came in at a little over $19 million. And as you can see, we started construction on May 17th of this year. With that, we anticipate that the majority of the work will be completed by winter of 2022, which is about 1.5 years from the start date. And during this process, we also were able to create a website for the project, which I'll touch on a little bit later, but you can see it here on www.middlefieldroad.org. Really good resource to get the latest information on the project. Our goal is going to be able to keep that updated with latest construction information, where the contractor is going to be working, things like that. Next slide, please. So in terms of construction, right now we're anticipating that it's going to be a phased approach. Generally, the work we're going to complete follows this general outline. So I just want to note that some of the work is going to be occurring concurrently, but this provides a general understanding. And so undergrounding work is going to be the first thing that we start with the sewer work. So we're going to start at Douglas Avenue, and then we're going to work our way towards 6th for that portion. We'll also be, once we're done with the sewer work, we're going to follow it up with the underground and utility work for the joint trench. And so for that, what we're planning is generally a 2-block at a time area to kind of limit the impacts to the overall area and Middlefield Road. So this is going to include the joint trench work, sidewalks, the amenities, street lights, trees. And right now we plan to work on what I call the south side of the road. So this is if you were traveling from Redwood City to Menlo Park. We're going to go all the way from Douglas working towards 5th. Once we're done with that, we're actually going to come back to Douglas and then work on the north side, or if you're traveling from Menlo Park into Redwood City. Once we're done with our work, there is some additional work that needs to be done by the local utility agencies. So once we install the joint trench, all of our amenities and things like that, PG&E and the other utilities are going to be on site to pull wire into the joint trench. Once it's pulled, what they're going to do is they're going to test and energize their system. They're going to connect to the homes and businesses along Middlefield Road. And then they're going to work on, once that is connected and working, they're going to de-energize the overhead lines and start removing them. So one thing that I'd like to mention is the PG&E and utility work that's not anticipated to start until we're done with our project. So this is going to be closer to when we end in the winter of 2022. They work from the top of the joint pole down. And so each utility, once they remove their line from the top of the pole, they remove that section, and then the next utility works. And so the work from that is going to continue potentially into later 2022 and possibly 2023. Once all the joint poles are removed, then our contractor will come back and do final patching of the concrete work. And so, like I said, this is a general phasing of the work. Some of it's going to be concurrent, and we may jump around based on kind of what we find, what makes sense to the contractor. But our goal is to get the job done, completed as fast as possible, while making sure we keep the impact to the entire stretch of Middlefield manageable, both for the customers, the business owners, and DPW. Next slide, please. So I think one big question that we anticipate getting from our business owners and that we're trying to address this, be proactive about is, when are you going to be in front of my place and how long are you going to be there? So we made sure to include several measures in our projects to address this exact issue. So as discussed previously, we have limited the amount of work that the contractor can do at a time to make sure that the disturbance is limited. We also require the contractor to provide temporary pedestrian walkways and access at all times to the businesses. As part of that, we make sure that there is access for delivery trucks and vehicle services to the businesses. So this will be maintained by using control by flaggers at the work zone and entrances during construction hours. I did hear earlier that there were, I guess, potential issues recently with deliveries for restaurants. I think that was a result of, we were doing potholing work, which we were kind of jumping around up and down the street. When we actually work on a 2-block radius, we'll make sure that the contractor is working closely with all the business owners and making sure that we understand delivery schedules and that they're allowed to access the businesses, provide deliveries, things like that. Another thing I'd like to mention is we'll always provide access and space for emergency vehicles. That's always important to us. And then Samtrans service, there is going to be times during the project where Samtrans bus stops are affected, but we've already been in contact with Samtrans and are working with them to understand exactly what's needed. If a stop site is out of service for any reason, we'll make sure to put notices on that bus stop and direct them to the next available stop where they can get on. As far as construction hours and work window, so our typical work window is Monday through Friday from 8 to 5 p.m. We have construction updates that will be posted to the website, and one of the main and important requirements that we have our contractor do is we provide a 48-hour notice to any businesses that it's going to be affected. So we've already distributed the main notification saying we're going to be out here. We've provided contact information for both DPW, the contractor, and the Office of Community Affairs. And then another requirement is when we're going to be in front of your business or store or house, the contractor has to give you 48-hour notice and let you know exactly when we're going to be out there. And so, like I said, we're working closely with Emma and the community and the Office of Community Affairs. We have a weekly meeting that is included with, or that we attend with all of these stakeholders. During that meeting, we discuss a 2-week look ahead so we get a better understanding of what exactly the contractor is working on. And then, like I said, in addition to that, we'll use that as an opportunity to make sure that the 48-hour notice is distributed. One thing I'd like to do is make sure we take this opportunity to remind everybody to slow for the cone zone. So, at DPW, any project we do, our safety is our #1 concern for the public, for our construction crews, as well as for the project team. So if you could please, remind your friends, neighbors, colleagues that travel down Middlefield Road that we're in a construction, and be aware of pedestrians, bicyclists. It's easy to get distracted by the construction going around, so make sure you slow down and pay attention. Next slide, please. So we've had, I understand that the the Office of Community Affairs had several community meetings. We have been a part of the majority of them, and we actually had one this morning. So it was at 10 a.m. at the Middlefield parking lot. This was an opportunity to provide the local business owners an update of construction. They're seeing us out there. I know they're curious. Like we said, we want to be proactive in making sure that we provide them as much information on the construction schedule as we can so they understand when we're going to be in front of their business. Our next meeting is scheduled for June 30th, 2020, which is next Thursday, I believe. So it's going to be at the same time, 10 to 11:30, but this one's going to be via Zoom. So the people that weren't able to attend the in-person meeting can attend that, and we're going to provide a similar type of update for them. And then again, all of our presentations and a lot of information that we have is included, will be uploaded to the project website, which we mentioned before, www.middlefieldroad.org. This website's available both in English and Spanish, and so I recommend you bookmark this page, pass it around, as this is going to be the best source for information on the project. Next slide, please. So the Office of Community Affairs has been very integral in doing a lot of the outreach work for us in this area. So as you can see, they've been in constant communication with the community. My understanding is they go out there and are, walk the street, They've been able to connect with the majority of the business owners, get contact information, whether that's emails or cell phones. We've been able to provide as much notification that the project is up and coming. The flyer on the left was developed by the Office of Community Affairs, kind of, sent out to all the businesses along Middlefield Road, identifying that the project is coming up, kind of reminding them what it's about. As well as our contractors required to provide, like I said, notification. So the notification in the top right is what we had sent out. Again, everything is sent out in English and in Spanish. And then I believe we also have a billboard that's out on the project that helps people, remind people of this project. Next slide, please. So in terms of other community outreach, so we have post-construction notifications. So these flyers and notifications again went out to inform people of the 2 community meetings we had. The team has made sure that everyone's aware of any upcoming meetings and so they can attend and ask questions. We've developed phone numbers for them to give us a call at, both for DPW and the Office of Community Affairs, as well as emails that we are monitoring on a daily basis. And so the outreach team hand-delivered these invitations to all the Middlefield Road businesses, as well as sending text messages and emails for any of the information that we had on file. And then also, I believe they notified this council by email with the meeting information. Next slide, please. So we did have a meeting this morning. The Office of Community Affairs developed a folder full of materials that was put together. So this included, information on the project, like we mentioned earlier. This included a project fact sheet, a sheet on who to contact, whether it's construction related or anything else. We've developed parking flyers to help people identify where the parking lots are located along Middlefield. And then we also took this opportunity to provide additional info about all the other programs available. So this included like a green business flyer, information about illegal dumping, information about the California rental relief, information about the COVID vaccine, and then also the fireworks ordinance that we discussed earlier in this meeting. Next slide, please. So this is our website that we developed. So like I said, it's www.middlefieldroad.org. We try to update this with the latest information on the project. It's available both in English and Spanish. We also are able to post any kind of past presentations on here. So like the past presentations for the North Fair Oaks Community Council, a lot of the information that we developed during the design of the process is all posted on here. And so again, this is a really good resource for you to bookmark, share with anybody that would be interested in the project, as this is going to be the best source of information on the project. Next slide, please. As far as who to contact, so this is the contact information for Public Works. Anything related to construction, we would be able to handle all those questions. You can call our front desk number, which is listed there. That's Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 p.m. or email at the email above. That gets monitored on a daily basis by several people on the team in the office. Any other project-related questions, we ask that you refer them to the Office of Community Affairs. So their information is listed there. Obviously, we work very closely as a team, so we share any kind of information or questions that come in so that we make sure to route it to the appropriate person, respond to whoever's making the request. Next slide, please. So that concludes my update. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Are there any questions from council members for Christoph? I see Vice Chair Prado, Juan Carlos. Go ahead.
Yes. First of all, Christoph, thank you for that presentation. I think there was a lot of great information. I had expressed earlier in tonight's meeting some of the merchants' concerns about the temporary lane closures. And I know that you detail that here. by saying that some of the lanes will be flagged down and closed. Any sort of way that some of the merchants could be notified beforehand, or is it completely random? Is it more in the morning or the evening? Is there any kind of information that the merchants could have beforehand in regard to lane closures and their delivery of their products?
Yeah, absolutely. So what we were doing recently was a lot of preliminary and investigative work on the project. So they were doing potholing. So if you guys are familiar with that, they're basically digging down under the road just to confirm and identify the utilities that are underground. As you can imagine, there's a lot of infrastructure that's already been built on Middlefield Road. It's been around for a while. And so that overall process is pretty quick, but they do jump around Middlefield quite frequently. So I think that's part of the problem, or what was part of the issue of not being able to notify the property owners, just because they'd be in front of their property, you know, an hour at most, something like that. As we move forward with the actual construction, they'll be blocking off potentially like 2 block segments to do the work. Before we do any of that, we will make sure to notify all the business owners that are affected by that. We'll also provide them with contact information for both Public Works as well as the contractor, as well as our inspector team in the field, so that we are able to coordinate any kind of deliveries. The contractor has been directed to allow all types of vehicle and delivery access to all stores. And so it'll be a combination of just making sure we reach out and contact these business owners, and then working together to get a better understanding of when these deliveries occur, so that we're prepared to let them in and not have any issues.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Councilmember Cerrillo, Beatrice, your question.
When the hours for these meetings are chosen, the one this morning was at 10 o'clock. The next one that you will hold is also at 10 o'clock. For those of us who are working, I just suggest and would like to recommend that meetings be more staggered to make sure that there's more input for those of us who are working. Thank you.
And oh, go ahead. Is there a reply to that?
No, I can defer to Emma on that. I believe there was a business survey conducted. I don't know if that was the time that was chosen, but Emma, I'm sure.
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair, the Office of Community Affairs has been working very closely with the businesses, and we've conducted multiple surveys. And really, in response to the business feedback, was really to conduct a meeting would be best after the morning rush, but before the lunch rush. So we did take that into consideration. That was, so we're trying to, find that equal balance that really supports and meets the needs of the businesses.
Oh.
We'll continue to monitor that, but we really did pick this time based on after morning rush, but yet before lunch, and we try to keep it at a short time as well.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Emma. Councilmember Rodriguez, your question.
Yes, thank you. Couple of quick questions. The first one is, will the street closures with cones remain before and after the 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Construction hours, or would they be removed?
So there will be blocked off areas while they're doing the work. The contractor will be installing K-rail in the roadway so that the work area is protected during construction. Before the contractor leaves for the day, they do need to provide public or access for pedestrians to access any kind of buildings, businesses, things like that. But the roadway will be closed off for those sections where they're working.
Thank you. And the next question is, what was the attendance like at today's meeting with business owners? And were there any concerns that the construction team wasn't anticipating?
I could answer that if you like, Christoph.
Yes.
We had we did do an attendance, and we had about 5 or 6 businesses there. But we did prepare packets for every single one of our businesses. And so every business will receive 100% will receive the packet. We will hand deliver that. We will also do we'll do the virtual meeting next week. You know, we have quantified the number of outreach we've done, the touch points, the texting, the website. And so, again, it was available in English and Spanish, the meeting. I think a follow-up question you had, I'm sorry, Ever, what was that?
Yeah, that was if the construction team or your team, if there was a concern that either of the teams were not anticipating.
No, I don't believe so. I think, in fact, we actually prompted many of the questions because we knew that the concerns were coming, and we are knowing that the communication is getting out there. We're getting emails and we have gotten calls, so we know the information is getting out to the community. We received as well as some questions from the public, and so we're responding. And again, that is through our website and through our phone number.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Question from Councilmember Whitney. Blair?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the county is going to manage it well, and Granite Rock is a real reputable company. But the last few years, just driving and biking around, I've seen projects that seem to get off track where they would tear up a street and then put some cones up, and months would go by with no activity. And, you know, if you shut down a whole lane of El Camino, or, you know, for us, Middlefield is our neighborhood business district. It's very disheartening for people to see street real estate taken out of usage. You know, you dig it up, you put some plates down, and then you say you're waiting on some other subcontractor, and months go by. That really gets people a little bit steamed, and I'm pretty sure that's not going to happen. But in the jurisdiction of the city of Redwood City, their segment of Middlefield, it just crawled along. It just looked really bad, and it created problems for people trying to make turns because they had started to build stuff and then they stopped, and it wasn't rainy season either. It was just something with project management.
Yeah, definitely. I think, you know, Public Works is definitely aware of the importance of making sure that we get in there and finish the project in a timely manner for several reasons. I think that can, you know, one of the reasons that we've awarded the project back in May and you still haven't seen, you know, them out there doing any kind of heavy construction work is we're doing a lot of work in the back end to make sure that we have everything ready so that when they go out and start construction, they actually can be productive. They have all they need. They have all the materials they need. They have all the approvals they need. We really understand what the sequencing and phasing and scheduling is going to be like to prevent these types of issues. I do want to say, you know, construction is always challenging, especially when you're working underground. And so that's one of the reasons we went out there and did a significant number of potholes. I'm sure you saw the workers out there. I think we did over 200 something potholes just to really understand what's underground. And so there's always, you know, potential conflicts or obstructions. And so we're doing what we can to make sure we avoid that. Granite Rock, you know, like you said, they're a very reputable construction company. They've done these types of projects before. We have a really good team in place with AECOM and our DPW staff. You know, the majority of our staff have been on this project from inception, and so we really understand exactly what we're trying to do. And then as well as with the help from, you know, Emma and the Office of Community Affairs. You know, we want to be as transparent as possible with any kind of scheduling, delays, things like that. And so that's another reason why we limited the contractor to specific areas so that we're not taking up the whole lane on Middlefield, right? We're working in kind of smaller areas to make sure that we get in there, we do what we need to do, and then we get out and can open it up for the public as well as the community and business.
Any other questions from council members? Emma, go ahead. I see your hand raised.
Yeah, through the chair, I'd like to also add is we have an OCA with, strategically have identified each of the businesses by zones within block areas. So when we contact them, if there's something that's happening that when we have a 2-week forecast, we're able to notify those businesses that live in specifically in that area. Again, that's through a text, email, and phone number. So we have really beefed up our inventory within our businesses, within block areas. And so we are very strategic in how do we get information out as quickly as possible. So I wanted to add that as well.
Thanks, Emma. Do we have any public comment on this topic, Jennifer?
I don't see any raised hands. If anybody has a public comment, please raise your hand. No, Clara, any on your side?
I know there are no Spanish public speakers on my side.
Okay, thank you. Back to you, Chair.
All right. Thank you very much, Christoph, for your presentation tonight.
Yep, you're very welcome. Have a good night.
Final presentation is Sequoia Adult School celebrating 100 years of service. The presentation is going to be made by Jonathan Few, who's the director of the Sequoia Adult School. Jonathan, if you'd go ahead.
Absolutely. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen right now. And so good evening, council members and attendees. So as previously said, I'm Jonathan Fu. I've had the pleasure of working at Sequoia Adult School for the past 6 years as the ESL coordinator, assistant director, and most recently as director beginning January of this year. So thank you for recognizing Sequoia Adult School's centennial this evening. And for Sequoia Adult School's 100-year celebration, we wanted to highlight our students' many successes. Many of our high school equivalency and diploma students are students originally from one of the high school sites of Sequoia Union High School districts. And it is humbling for students to choose our school to continue their education 1 year, 5 years, and sometimes even 30 years after last attending high school. We also serve a lot of immigrants and English learners in our community, many of whom are some of the most in need of computer training, support in navigating the community, and academic preparation. Over the years, it has been a great source of pride for us to see the students across all programs continue to achieve their goals through transitioning to community college, job training, and university. With that being said, I have a video that I'd like to go ahead and present to the council celebrating our 100-year anniversary.
So the adult school is a community. It's a place where people come to be able to access different future goals for themselves. The adult school is open to everybody. You know, we have all different types of people that come here. We don't deny anybody. We do everything that we can to help anybody.
I decided to come back to finish my high school equivalency. It's like, 30 years later. So it's never too late for anyone to come back to school. You can come back at any age. And it's something that I'm striving to do for myself as well as my family so I can achieve my goal.
Yeah, I have a lot of troubles to enter because a lot of people want to study at this school. And at that time, I didn't find a space. But I came and I say, okay, I have to go there. And I came many times. And then finally, when they get me as a student, I start my school and I meet a lot of professors who give me a lot of support. They teach me how to do things here because I didn't have any idea at that time.
So it's very important that this school continue because we serve a segment of our population that tends to be disenfranchised. Nobody else is really serving those students. So if you look at English as a second language students, there are really no programs out there teaching English at the level that we teach English to students.
We serve a lot of students that are highly, highly motivated, a lot of immigrants coming here just to start better lives for themselves. It's always amazing to me that people are going in and working full-time jobs, supporting families. A lot of students still have the energy to come in and learn. A lot of students that have encountered some sort of difficulties or barriers in their lives, being able to sort of come and take that first step into getting the next step for their education.
This school is the starting place. This is the foundation. Then after that, the students can go to Cañada. They can take advanced ESL classes so that eventually, when the students finish the ESL program at Cañada, they're taking college level classes. And once they've achieved that level, they can go anywhere.
I have to tell you about the support that I get from here, I get everything to transfer to the college. At that time, I didn't have any idea how to complete all my application and all the stuff for being at college. So this school provided me everything, all tools to continue with my education.
So, of course, our student success would not have been possible without the support of our community partners who have provided essential support services and pathways for our students to continue their education to attain their goals. Kenyatta College, Job Train, and Renaissance are some of our major transition partners who serve many Sequoia Adult School graduates. So I understand that a little over 10 years ago, the North Fair Oaks Council was encouraging further collaboration between Sequoia Adult School and Kenyatta College. So since then, Sequoia Adult School has created a partnership involving alignment of curriculum, hiring a team of transition specialists, and developing pathways, which resulted in over 150 students transitioning to Kenyatta College every year. The success is not only in the number of students transitioning, but also in our alumni success throughout college. According to recent data, about 50% of ESL students who received ACE awards and academic excellence awards at Kenyatta College were Sequoia Adult School alumni. We also look forward to our future collaborations with Kenyatta College, which includes a recent articulation agreement between our schools' respective computer technology classes. So another organization we'd want to give a shout out to is Upward Scholars, which is an organization actually founded at our school. They've had a tremendous impact on our college-bound students' success by helping them get access to college tutors, free textbooks, and transportation scholarships in college. We are eternally grateful for their support of our students as they transition to college. We all know that this has been a very difficult year for everyone, but we are proud of the accomplishments our school has made quickly transitioning all of our classes to online synchronous learning. We've been able to continue to serve our student population, many of whom were displaced from the workforce, and we're extremely proud of our 70 high school equivalency and diploma graduates this school year. We'd also like to give special recognition to our community partners, specifically Vegan Outreach and Peninsula Food Runners, who've helped us address the barrier of food insecurity many of our students face. Additionally, we'd like to recognize San Mateo County Libraries, who have helped our students overcome one of the biggest barriers during the pandemic, which is accessing high-speed internet by providing free hotspots to our students. So thank you, council members and attendees, for your time and for the opportunity to recognize Sequoia Adult School Centennial. Thank you for your continued support of our school and the North Fair Oaks community. We look forward to continuing to provide high quality educational services in North Fair Oaks.
That's terrific, Jonathan, and thank you very much for your presentation. Do we have any questions from council members for Jonathan tonight? Councilmember Rodriguez has his hand up. Ever? Go ahead.
Yeah, not a question, just, the recognition that the adult school has certainly served our community well. And our North Fair Oaks Community Council has collaborated and always supported the Sequoia Adult School. We have worked, in several locations with former Director Lionel DeMaine. I'm glad to know that, he's enjoying more time now. And I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome you, Mr. Fu. And, anytime you need anything, just let us know.
Ever, thank you so much. Yeah, Lionel was my mentor, so he is happily enjoying retirement. Just happy to be serving this community. So thank you so much.
Happy to hear.
Any other comments or questions from council members? Do we have any public comment on the presentation, Jennifer?
Any public comment, please use the raise hand feature. No. Clara, how about on your side?
There are no Spanish public speakers on this presentation.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, well,
Hi,
thank you
teacher.
very much. And thank you, Jonathan, and congratulations on 100 years of amazing contributions to the community. That is just absolutely outstanding. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Let's see, with that, we had a very full agenda tonight. I wanted to thank all of the presenters that we had this evening. Special thanks to everyone on the county staff, those who support us, Clara, Jennifer, Tim, Maggie, Emma, and Justin for their support. A reminder of our next meeting. Council members, please put it in your calendar. We have a study session relatively early this month. The third Thursday is actually July 15th. That'll be at 6:30. The topic is going to be housing in North Fair Oaks. We're going to be, which will include an update to the housing element of the county general plan, a status update on that, as well as an update on the Mercy project. With that, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn. Do we have a second?
Second that.
Second. Thank you very much, Councilmember Rodriguez. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you all. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.